lesson on hypervisors. We're going to talk about the critical concept that makes your lab possible. Without hypervisors, without these guys, you cannot do anything. And that's why it is 100% awesome. That's why I'm super hyped. Okay, I'm super hyped about this, and we're gonna dive right in. Okay, so what the heck is virtualization, right? What is this? So virtualization is like one of those concepts that took me a long time to get. And the first time I heard about it, it was about 10 years ago. I think I was, the virtual reality was just sort of coming into fruition. And, my family, we couldn't afford a virtual reality headset, but it was one of those things where you put on this headset and, you get into the system and you try to feel around, and the system basically lies to your senses, your sense of hearing, your vision in particular, and it tries to tell you that something is there that isn't there. It provides a more immersive experience, right? And virtualization, when we talk about technology and we talk about what you're going to be building in this course, is sort of similar, right? We have a hypervisor, and this hypervisor lies to virtual machines, VMs, about hardware that's available to it. And so the hypervisor might say, this VM has a keyboard, it has a mouse, it has RAM, it has a CPU, when in reality, all these things are emulated in software. In fact, they're all just files. They're just files, that's it. But virtualization is awesome because it gives us a lot of benefits, what you're going to learn about in a moment. So what can you do with virtualization? Well, obviously what we're doing is running many VMs on a single host, right? We're running this on a single host so we can have a single pizza box server. And by pizza box, I mean 1U. I mean it's a server that's about this thick, and you can slide it into a 4-post rack inside of a data center, right? That's typically what organizations use these VMs and virtualization systems for, right? So you have this ESXi host, for example. This is a good example of a hypervisor. You have an ESXi host, and you would install it onto a blade server like a Dell PowerEdge or something like that. You slide it into a rack, and then in there you would install multiple VMs, Windows 10, Windows 8.1, Windows XP, whatever you need, macOS, Linux, Debian, SUSE. You could all put that there, and now all the VMs are running in this single environment. Now, of course, this machine has to be really beefy to support all these VMs on it. You've got to have a lot of RAM, you've got to have a lot of CPU, and that sort of thing. But it translates to a savings in cost because you get a savings in time, right? And that's actually what it's going to do for you. As we create our lab, we're not going to have to deal with this craziness right here because we're just going to build our complete virtual platform on our computer, right? On a laptop or a desktop if you prefer that. I prefer a laptop because then I can take my entire training environment with me. But the point here is that it saves you a lot of time and it makes it very easy to scale. If you want to add another virtual machine, you just right-click, new virtual machine. Done in a matter of 10 seconds. If you wanted a new physical machine, you'd have to right-click, go to Amazon or Best Buy or CDW, and then you might have it in 10 weeks, depending on how long it takes for the procurement process to complete. So scalability is awesome, and that is another reason why we deal with hypervisors. So what exactly is this hypervisor thing? Well, we have two types. We have type 1, bare metal, and we have type 2, which is the VM software running on the OS. So a bare metal hypervisor, like I mentioned earlier, something like ESXi host. ESXi. And a host is VMware's term for a server. This is a VMware concept. Okay, and they're sort of the forerunners in this ground. They started it, they finalized it, they're the most mature when it comes to creating hypervisors. And that's why we're going to be using their software. Okay, so bare metal, low footprint, the operating system resides in a small space on the hardware and it just runs smoothly. It's stable and it's mature. Type 2, this is like Oracle's VirtualBox or VMware Workstation. It's not as stable because now you're installing the virtual software on top of an operating system which is existing on top of the hardware. So there's an extra layer, an operating system layer, which can, of course, cause a performance hit in some ways. So let's look at this when we compare these types. This is our type 1 hypervisor. We start with the physical hardware, right? This is the RAM, the CPU, the chassis that houses the motherboard. Then on top of that, we would install our ESXi software if you're talking about VMware. That is a type 1 hypervisor, bare metal. And then in there, we can install multiple virtual machines. So here you can see I've got a Windows 10 virtual machine, I've got a Kali Linux virtual machine, and also a Mac OS virtual machine. And in these machines, I'm running various applications. So each of these VMs is its own isolated unit. It's as if there are separate physical machines, but the VMs don't know that. They think that they're real, but they're not real. okay? And we call them guest VMs because they're guests of the hypervisor host, which in a type 1 case is a bare metal physical server. Type 2, we still have physical hardware, right? So in my case, my type 2 hypervisor, I've got my laptop right now. This is my host. And on that laptop, I'm running Windows 10, right? And then in Windows 10, I can install VirtualBox or VMware Workstation, right? And then once I have VMware Workstation installed, I can install multiple VMs there. So the difference is now I introduced a new layer, which is this OS physical layer, which of course introduces a performance hit. But for what we're going to be doing, the performance hit is going to be negligible. Typically, you're only installing a type 1 hypervisor in an enterprise environment where you're supporting hundreds of thousands of hosts. Okay, when you're using a type 2 hypervisor, it's perfect for a lab environment, and you're going to see why in a moment. There's a lot of advantages. So type 1, of course, like I said before, you get better performance, greater efficiency, and ESXi host is a good example of that. Here is ESXi host here. This is just a screenshot of the console. You can see you could have multiple, you could have multiple VMs over here, and you can manage them all from a single pane of glass. With a type 2 hypervisor, it's easier to set up, it's quicker to establish VMs, and there's a lower management overhead. So this is a good example of Oracle's VirtualBox, right? We've got 3 guest VMs, and they're all running on my laptop. In this case, we're running VMware Workstation, where I can just create a new virtual machine just by clicking this Create a New Virtual Machine button. So it's really easy because I just click that button. I don't have to manage multiple ESXi hosts. I don't have to, go through change control. I just have this software, I download it, and we can get our complete lab set up in a matter of seconds, literally. So now I just want to talk about the host and the guest OS. So the host, and I kind of already mentioned this, but just to clarify, the host OS is the OS that's hosting the VMs. It's the OS that's providing services, that's providing emulation services to the virtual machines. It's the operating system that's lying to the VMs, okay, about the hardware that's really available when really it's software. So the host would be Windows 10 in this case, and we have this type 2 hypervisor, VMware Workstation, and then we can have multiple virtual machines there, guest VMs, and physical machines. So the physical machine would be my Windows 10 machine, the guest VMs are the VMs that are a part of that host. So coming up, we're going to talk about virtual networking. It's time to get a handle on the strange and amorphous world of virtual networking. I'm going to talk to you about what it is, why you need to care about it, and this will be our next step to getting closer to building our lab. So I'm so excited you're with me. This is an awesome course. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know of anything else like it. You're going to be one step ahead of all your friends, all your coworkers, all your peers, all your family members. And it's going to put you a step ahead because now you're going to get that hands-on experience you need, all right? So I will see you in the next lecture. Thanks for sticking with me. If you have any questions, leave a comment. Make sure you reach out to the community and check out the download section as we go through these videos because it'll help you as you go through all these lessons, all right? I'll see you in the next lesson.